Hey guys, so I just finished recording 2 different almost 30-minute videos of reading the Bible, which I have here. It's got this wonderful, beautiful cover on it, floral, engraved design, so it's very pleasing to touch the texture on here and tap, so I might do a bit of that while I'm talking to you guys. This video is dedicated to my Savior, Jesus Christ, and I want to tell you guys my testimony of coming to Jesus. Truly, I hope it's long lasting. God willing, because I mean, just to preface this, before I kind of like recently realized that Jesus is real, I was an atheist. I always considered myself to be very logical and intelligent. And so I came to this conclusion one day in my adult life that I didn't want to believe in a God. I didn't want to believe in any religion whatsoever. Because as a child, I didn't want to believe in Jesus, because at that time my heart was receptive to that, to the thought of a loving God who watches over me and takes care of me. I really needed that in my life, in my broken family that I was in at the time. But I came to this conclusion when I was finally an adult, like around 25 or 26 years old. I just thought, you know what, I've tried religion. I've tried different kinds of religions. I'm just a human. I have no evidence that this religion is the right religion. And who am I to say that there is a God when I have no idea? When I'm just a human. Like, even if there is a God, how am I supposed to prove it? So, anyway, it was just this logical evolution of my spirituality, where I was just like, you know what? I don't want to be tied to this anymore, and I don't want to believe in a God anymore. Doesn't make any sense for me. And for 2 or 3 years, I was just content with that. I started relying on myself. It was actually kind of strange, because for a lot of my life, I would pray to God every night, mostly out of fear of not wanting, just being scared of the boogeyman, basically. And so for the first time in my life, I was like, oh, you know what? No, I don't rely on this invisible God anymore. And everything that good that's gonna come out of my life is gonna come from my efforts, my hard work, and my perseverance. And I really fell into like self-help content and like manifestation principles, and like, I don't know, now in hindsight, I see that I was just trying to fill the hole with something else. I basically just filled it with something else, but I totally was just like, no God. And I was okay with that. And I started dabbling into like tarot card readings and oracle cards. I used to have like an oracle card reading video on this channel that I have since taken down. growing up, and my first exposure to marijuana was when I was in 5th grade, or maybe even 4th grade. But I actually started like consistently smoking and like considered myself a pothead from like 13 years old up until adulthood. And even during this time in my life, I was smoking marijuana or consuming it in some way or another very, very regularly, almost every single day. And it was like, I saw it as my choice of relaxation. You know, some people want to come home at the end of a long day and drink a beer on the couch, you know, but my thing was marijuana. And that was my way of de-stressing, relaxing, having fun, like basically just numbing myself in a lot of cases. And I'm sorry, I know you guys can probably hear that cricket. It's okay though. It adds to the ambiance, right? Okay. The crickets come out at night. So anyway, I'm setting up the stage here about my testimony. So that's where I was at. I was like deep in the new age, like movement practices of self-love and universal love and manifestation and crystals and energy and vibrations, spirit guides, all this stuff that I thought was completely harmless. And what I now know is that as soon as I rejected God, like completely and totally in my life, that evil came in like a thief in the night and tried to take over the ship, basically, because I had left myself vulnerable to these things. And so it's cut to January of 2021. I start to get really uneasy about the fact that I had not taken a break from smoking in almost a year, because my birthday's in January, so that was kind of my marker. I'm like, oh, my last birthday, I had a birthday blunt, and I pretty much smoked every single day. I don't even think I took one day off that whole entire cycle from my last birthday to this 2021 birthday. And I took note of that, but I was still in denial. And it started around this time where every time I would smoke, most of the time it was like after work at the end of the night when the kids have gone to bed. Like I was looking forward to my nighttime relaxation, and I started experiencing like these like really weird pains in my chest every time I smoked without fail, which was every night at this point. And I would freak out. I was not the kind of person to ever freak out. Like even when I was younger, like pre-kids, when I was experimenting with drugs, experimenting with shrooms and ecstasy and cocaine even, I always like chased that high. Like I could never be high enough because I always just wanted a crazy trip. Like the higher, out of my mind it was, the better. Like that's what I wanted out of it. So it was kind of odd for me to be like this panicky, just smoking marijuana, which is relatively, tame compared to all the other things that I've mentioned. But so for like weeks or maybe months, I've been experiencing just consistent panic attacks. Like I literally would feel like I was having a heart attack, and I would panic. I would during this time, I would think to myself, like, I never want to smoke again, because I was that afraid and that in that much pain that I was like, okay, never, no more. But then, like an insane person, the next day I would like have an amnesia about what I had experienced the night before, and I would be like, the whole day I would think about like, oh, I really want to smoke. It was my crutch. It was my vice. And I would convince myself that like what had happened the previous day or previous times was just a fluke, or that it wasn't that bad, that I just needed to do something different this time or whatever. But it just kept happening every single time. And I got to this point where I was like, I just finally started to accept the fact that maybe something was very, very deeply wrong with me. Because I was just realizing that's the literal definition of somebody who's insane, of insanity, as they say. I'm pretty sure I heard that somewhere, but like the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And that's exactly what I was doing day after day after day after day. And I hit this real low point. I hit a low point and I was like, you know what? Like, I started to realize like maybe this is like an actual addiction. Because you never think like, oh, me, a normal functioning person, is addicted to something. Like that just, it seems too harsh. It seems too severe. Like to accept that. So I thought to myself, okay, you know what? I want to see it if I can just take a break for one day, for one evening, because most of the time I was smoking in the evening. I'm like, I just want to take a break for one evening just to prove to myself that I'm not addicted and that I can take a break when I want to. Because, you know, this, like, over a decade that I had been smoking, I was always kind of able to stop when I wanted and take long hiatuses and come back and just like ebb and flow. But this time it felt really different because I was using it for everything. It's like, oh, I need to do chores. I need to smoke first. Oh, we're gonna watch a movie. I need to smoke first. Oh, we're gonna have friends over. I need to smoke for sure. Like, I was just using it for everything. And honestly, I think just to really numb myself from the stress and everything. And I used to convince myself that it was making me a better parent. But during this time where I was like hitting rock bottom, I started to realize that I was lying to myself, that I was actually being a shitty parent, because like you can't even do a simple daily task without getting high. Like, what kind of example is that? And I was getting really irritable because every time I would smoke at night, I would start to get really tired. And so I wouldn't have the capacity or the energy to like deal with anything. So anyway, it took me a while to like get over the denial and realize the facts of the situation. So I tried to take a break for one night. I couldn't. I literally couldn't. It was just consuming my brain every moment of the day of waiting and anticipating the next time that I was gonna be able to smoke again. And I remember it went on like that for a straight month of me actually buckling down and like actively trying to take a break for one day. And I just couldn't. And I felt so ashamed, because I'm like, how can I, you know, this normal person with a good job and a good family and a good home life, and like, you know, I have everything I need, a home and food in my fridge and accepting the fact that I really can't do this on my own. Like, what do I do? Like, who can I talk to? I was too embarrassed. I was too embarrassed to tell anybody what I was going through. And I started sobbing and crying, like, just realizing, just feeling so weak and so dumb and like such a failure. And I remember I thought I was thinking about a video that I had seen about somebody's testimony on YouTube. This girl who was in New Age, like in the New Age movement, like similar stuff that I told you before, like the crystals, and the spirit guides and stuff like that. That she realized that it was wrong, and like creepy stuff was happening from it, because it's basically witchcraft. So, disguised as something good, and that she eventually like got free from all this crazy bad stuff that was happening through Jesus, like being delivered from bad stuff. I'll just leave it at that. If you guys are intrigued, just look up like New Age to Jesus in YouTube and you'll find videos. Very eye-opening. And I remember I had seen one of those like a few weeks prior. That's probably what triggered me to wanna like to start opening my eyes about what I was doing. And I just gave it like my life, even though I was atheist this whole time. I just like finally felt so broken inside that I was just like, God, Jesus, like, you're my last resort. Like, I obviously can't do this on my own. I've tried so hard for an entire month to take a break for one day, and I cannot do it. So I'm asking you, like, if you're real, please help me. Please show me. And please perform a miracle and deliver me from this addiction. Like, take it from me. Please, like, just begging, like, God, please take all the temptation from me. And I just remember I just went to bed in tears, crying. And I honestly, I wasn't expecting anything. It was just my desperate cry out, because I didn't feel like I had the internal strength to carry on, or to do what I needed to do. And so I go to bed, and I wake up the next morning. It's Monday. But you know what? I think I specifically asked, like, if you're real, let me get through this whole work week, Monday through Friday, without smoking, like without temptation, basically. But again, not expecting anything, because I still was full of doubt. And I wake up Monday morning, and I like just go about my day, like, I feel pretty much the same, like physically. But I remember just like getting through that day, and I remember the first time that the temptation popped into my head of like, maybe you should smoke. Like, that thought in my brain of just like, maybe you should smoke. And I just like was able to recognize that thought, and I was like, nah, I don't really feel like I need it. That's okay. And I just carried on. It's just like the thought just went away, and then I continued the rest of my day. And then like again at nighttime, when I usually would smoke, the thought popped into my head again, like, oh, it's that time, maybe I should smoke. And again, I was easily just like, nah. But nah. And this continued the whole week, Monday through Friday. 5 days in a row, where it used to consume me every minute, every hour. I would have that like urgent desire to smoke. It suddenly became just a thought that would float by, like, oh, I could smoke right now, but nah, like, just easily just like brush it fine without it. And then like Saturday, it's like 6 days later on Saturday, and I just like come to this realization, like, I tried for a whole month to do what I just did. I tried for a whole month to take just one night off from smoking, and I couldn't do it. The temptation, the physical dependence was too strong. But the night that I prayed to Jesus to take it off from me and help me, I went a week easily. Barely, like literally no temptation. It was just a thought that just floated by of like, oh, this is what I would normally do right now, but I don't need that. It just blows my mind, you guys. It just blows my mind, because I feel like, in all honesty, I feel like God made me go through this experience, this specific order of everything, for a reason. I feel like he let me struggle for that month. He let me like process this whole situation of trying to do it on my own and failing, so that I would have zero doubt when I finally broke down and desperately cried for his help, that I would have no doubt that he was the missing piece, that it was him who supernaturally took the temptation from my body and from my mind and from my spirit. Most likely it was probably a spirit of addiction that was on me. So it's Saturday and I'm rejoicing, like, God, you did it. You took it from me. You took this addiction from me. I'm free of it. And what do? How do I celebrate? I celebrate by hitting a blunt. So stupid, right? It's like, it's ruining my life. And I successfully get a whole week, well, Monday through Friday, without it. And I decide to celebrate with a good old smoke. Because that's how I used to celebrate. That's how I used to celebrate everything. Oh, it's my birthday? Huge smoke fest. Take the kids to the grandparents and I would be home just waking and baking. I would go out for the night, which is rare. It is rare. I don't want to paint a picture of myself like I was super reckless or anything. I don't think that I was, but it definitely, again, it absolutely was not good, though. I wasn't headed down a good path at all. But yeah, so anyway, so I go a week without smoking, and then I decide, oh, I'm gonna celebrate by smoking again. And it just confirmed for me that I was really truly done with it, because I hated every second of it. Immediately I had those like pains in my chest, and I was having a panic attack, and I was like, I don't want to be high anymore. I don't want to be high anymore. I don't want to be high anymore. And that was the last time that I had the desire to want to smoke. I feel like it was important, even though it was dumb, that I decided to celebrate by doing what I was trying to get over, what I was trying to break free from my life. It finalized for me that I was ready and strong enough to take the step of being done, and finally actually taking my stash and pointing at my kitchen cabinet, because that's where my stash used to be. Hundreds of dollars worth of marijuana products, like the vape pens, like the wax pens, and cartridges and like bottles of the flower, like the marijuana flower that you put in a bowl, and pipe pieces, and just like little knickknacks, that I would use to grind stuff up and whatever. I finally, after that moment when I realized that this wasn't for me anymore, I took that whole stash and I just threw it all in the trash. And I felt like that was important, like that needed to happen, because before then I did not have the strength to throw away my stash, because for the reason I just mentioned, it was hundreds of dollars worth. I felt like that was such a waste. Like, I couldn't bring myself to do it because I felt like that was a waste of money. But in that moment, I just realized, like, no amount of money is worth this terrible feeling and hitting rock bottom because I have no control. So I just threw it all away, and I didn't miss it at all. I finally got to the point where I was just like, nah, screw this stuff. I don't care. I don't care if it costs money. Like, I want this out of my life. And, yeah, and then after that, I went, like, another whole month straight of just being like, I'm free, baby. I don't have any, desire to smoke marijuana. The only other time that I guess I slipped up, is because I went over to a friend's house. Like a month after that I threw away my stash, I went to her house on the weekend, and it was the first time I saw her in a long time. And she smokes. And I remember before I was preparing to go over there, I was prepping myself, like, I know she's probably gonna have weed, and I was just prepping myself on, saying no, and just, respectfully declining if she asked me if I wanted to smoke or whatever. So I already had it set in my heart that I was gonna say no, and that I didn't need it, and I didn't want it. But once I was actually there, and we were on her balcony, and we were having a heart-to-heart, and she was hitting a blunt, and she kept asking me, like, come on. Basically, I just let myself get peer pressured into it until I finally was like, okay, just a little bit. And it wasn't a bad experience, but I still didn't like it. That was I felt like another important milestone, because the month before, when I had that little celebratory smoke and hated it and threw away my stash, that was like me finally being like, I'm done for me. But then this experience was like, I gave in because I wanted to like have fun with my friend and feel closer to her and stuff. But then it made me realize, like, you know what? No, like, no person is worth putting myself at risk like this, and like opening myself back up to this thing that just wasn't helping me. And so that was like it resolved in me of like, from now on, I don't care who it is or what the reason is or whatever, like, it's a no. I don't want to smoke for me. I don't want to smoke for anyone else. It's done. And that was in April of 2021. Now it's like mid-February 2022, and that was the last time that I touched marijuana at all. It's probably been the longest I've ever gone in my, like, since I first started smoking in the first place, without smoking and not even wanting to. And I truly believe that it wouldn't be possible without Jesus Christ. That's the only one denominator that made the difference for me, that made the change. It made it this long lasting. So, anyway, needless to say, I mean, after God does a miracle like that in your life, how can you be the same person? How can you carry on living as if there's no God? I mean, I can't. So even though I'm not perfect, I'm not, I still cuss a lot. I'm trying not to. I still, sometimes say hateful things or bad things that just don't need to be said, or there's just a lot of pruning that needs to be done in my life for sure. But I'm trying, and that's why for the first time in my life I'm trying to read this Bible from cover to cover, knowing that this is real. That it's like I have read a little bit of the Bible before when I was younger, but I didn't have any real true like connection to it. I felt like I was reading stories, and they were kind of hard to understand, and they were, sometimes they're interesting, but sometimes they're boring. But now just being like, God is real, and Jesus did a miracle in my life. I read it so literally, with so much reverence, that, and before I pray, or before I read, I always try to pray to the Holy Spirit, who is our helper, to help me understand and like take in the wisdom that God wants me to have. And I just feel like every time I read it, I get that wisdom. I feel like I'm connecting the dots more than I ever had in my whole entire life, and that it makes sense. And I'm seeing like all the like the prophecies and the like how Jesus was really like the way to Jesus in the New Testament was so apparent in the Old Testament. And what else, God, is important for me to say? I just, more than ever, like, I could just cry thinking about how beautiful Jesus is, and the reality of that God himself came to this earth as a man, humbled himself to be a defenseless baby, and was crucified and just went through a horribly horrific, gruesome death, just so that we could be set free and have the option to follow him and be in eternity with him. And it's all I know is that I really believe now that God is real, and if he's real, then I want to make sure that I'm on his good side, and that I'm returning the love that he has for me. The fact that he waited for that moment for me to be in misery and be at my lowest point, and he I feel like he just lifted me up out of it. Like he was waiting for that so that I would be ready to accept what he has for me. And I don't know what that is, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to learn about my God and learn how to hear him and follow his, and just be obedient to whatever it is that he wants me to do. So anyway, that's my testimony. I hope it reaches somebody. I just felt, it's been pretty much almost a year now since I feel like my life has changed. My spiritual life has changed from believing in no God to believing in my God, the God. I haven't really talked about it very much, like online. I have 2 YouTube channels. I have one for my music and I have one for this ASMR. But I felt like, you know what, this is a part of my life. And it's time that I shared it and let you guys know. And I just hope that if any of you are feeling that way that I was feeling back then, like just trapped and lost in doubting yourself and doubting your path and feeling weak and vulnerable and scared and any of the above, all the above, I just want you to know that I genuinely believe that Jesus is real. And I think that if you ask, because it's a two-way street. Jesus is a gentleman. He's not gonna force himself on you and make you love him and make you choose him. He's given you the choice. He gave us free will to decide if we want to find out what he's about. And so if you feel like you're curious and you want to give him a try, I guarantee that he's going to be so happy that you're even giving him that chance, and that he'll deliver and he'll show you. He will do something perfect in your life that you needed or that you've been waiting for, or that's just going to answer you in the perfect way that you need to be answered. So if that's you, I just ask you to just go ahead. You don't have to say it out loud. You can just say it in your heart, say it in your mind. Just, God who sent his son Jesus on this earth. Like, if you're real, like, show me. Like, let me get to know you. If you're real, like, don't leave me behind, and show me that you're real. And ask for the Holy Spirit to help you. But yeah, so that's all I wanted to say. I know this is it's a little bit heavy for an ASMR, but at the end of the day, it's good news. It's good news that we have hope. True, long-lasting hope. I love you guys, and Jesus loves you, more importantly, more than I can ever love you.